Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dawn, watching the stars through the main window. His ship had been flying through empty space for 3 weeks now, looking for new planets and strange things among the stars. It was a quiet job, but Jake liked it that way. "Captain, I'm getting something weird on the sensors," said Amy Johnson from her seat at the communications desk. She was young, maybe 25, with bright red hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. Jake walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of weird?" "There's something big out there, about 2 hours away at our current speed. It's not moving, just floating in space. But it's giving off a strange energy signal." Lisa Parker, the chief engineer, looked up from her workstation. She was a tough woman with grease under her fingernails and tools hanging from her belt. "Energy. Signal? From what? There's nothing out here but empty space." Ryan Cooper, their tactical officer, turned his chair around. He was a big man with careful eyes who always watched for danger. Could be a trap. Pirates sometimes use fake signals to draw ships in. Jake thought about it for a moment. They were far from any known trade routes, far from any planets with people on them. What would be out here? "Amy, can you get a better reading on whatever it is?" Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "I'm trying, but the signal is strange. It keeps changing, like it's alive somehow." "Alive?" Lisa stood up and walked over. "Let me see that." The two women worked together, their heads close as they studied the readings. After a few minutes, Lisa straightened up with a confused look on her face. "Captain, this doesn't match anything in our databases. The energy pattern is completely unknown. But there's something else, ... "What? The metal signature?" "Whatever this thing is made of, it looks like human steel. Old human steel." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "How old?" "I can't tell exactly, but the computer says it could be thousands of years old. Maybe older." Ryan shook his head. "That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for about 400 years. We don't have anything that old out here." "The sensors don't lie," Lisa said firmly. "Whatever we're looking at, it's human-made and ancient." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the object, but keep our weapons ready, just in case." The Stellar Dawn turned toward the mysterious signal and began to move faster. As they got closer, their sensors began to pick up more details. Whatever they were approaching was big, much bigger than their own ship. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "I'm starting to see it on the visual scanners. Put it on the main screen." The front window changed to show what their cameras were seeing. Everyone on the bridge went quiet. Floating in the darkness of space was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was huge, maybe 10 times the size of the Stellar Dawn. Its hull was dark and covered with strange marks and symbols. Parts of it looked damaged, with holes and scars from what might have been weapons fire. But other parts looked perfect, as if they had just been built. "My God," whispered Lisa. "Look at the size of that thing." The ship had a strange shape, not like the clean lines of modern human vessels. It looked more like something that had grown rather than been built. There were curves and angles that seemed to flow into each other, and the whole thing had a sense of power, even though it appeared to be completely dead. "Are there any life signs?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. "No, sir. No life support. No active power systems. No movement. It's completely dark inside. But the energy signal? Still there, coming from deep inside the ship. I can't figure out what's causing it." Dr. Alan Foster, who had been quietly studying his own readings, finally spoke up. The old archaeologist had white hair and gentle eyes, but he knew more about ancient human history than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, I think we need to board that vessel." Everyone turned to look at him. "Doctor, that ship could be dangerous," Ryan said. We don't know anything about it. Exactly, Alan replied. That's why we need to investigate. Look at those markings on the hull. I've never seen anything like them, but they're definitely human. In origin, this could be the archaeological find of the century. Jake studied the mysterious ship on the screen. It was beautiful in a dark, powerful way. But there was something about it that made him feel uneasy, as if it were watching them, even though it appeared to be dead. Lisa, can you scan the ships? Structure? See if it's safe to board. Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes. The hull looks solid, and there's still atmosphere inside most of the ship. I'm reading normal oxygen levels in many sections. Whatever this thing is, it was built to last. Weapons? I can see what might be weapon ports, but nothing is active. The ship appears to be completely powered down. Jake made his decision. We're going aboard. Lisa, Ryan, and Dr. Foster, you're with me. Amy, you stay here and monitor our communications. If anything goes wrong, get us out of here fast. Yes, sir, Amy replied, though she looked worried. They prepared their equipment and put on their spacesuits. The small shuttle bay of the Stellar Dawn opened, and their boarding craft moved toward the ancient ship. As they got closer, Jake could see more details of the strange markings on its hull. They looked almost like writing, but in no language he had ever seen. There, Lisa pointed to a section of the ship. That looks like an airlock. The boarding craft attached itself to the ancient ship with a soft bump. They checked their equipment one more time, then opened the airlock door. Jake stepped into the mysterious vessel, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The corridor they entered was wide and tall, much bigger than it needed to be for humans. The walls were covered with the same strange markings they had seen on the outside. The air is good, Lisa announced, checking her instruments. We can breathe in here. They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. Everything was dark and quiet, but Jake had the strange feeling that the ship was somehow aware of their presence. This way, Dr. Foster said, pointing down a corridor that seemed to lead toward the center of the vessel. If this ship follows normal design patterns, the command center should be in that direction. As they walked through the ancient halls, Jake wondered who had built this incredible ship and why it was floating alone in the emptiness of space, waiting for someone to find it. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Kate Williams stood in the Great Hall of New Geneva Station, the heart of the Galactic Federation. The massive room could hold thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds. Today, representatives from across the galaxy had come to hear about humanity's discovery. Kate felt nervous as she looked out at the crowd. The humans sat in a small section near the back, while the major alien races occupied the front rows. The Zephyrians were tall and covered in blue-gray scales with sharp teeth and cold yellow eyes. They had ruled much of the galaxy through military strength for over 2,000 years. Next to them sat the Cortani, beings of pure intelligence who looked like floating jellyfish made of light. Their technology was so advanced that they considered most other races to be primitive children. They spoke through translation devices that turned their thoughts into words others could understand. The Melkari filled another section with their large, furry bodies and forearms. They controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes and measured everything in terms of profit and loss. Their small black eyes watched Kate with a look of merchants deciding if something was worth their time. Honored delegates, Kate began, her voice carrying across the hall through the translation system. I come before you today to share an important discovery made by human explorers in the Outer Rim territories. A low rumble of conversation filled the room. Most of the aliens were already losing interest. Humans had been part of the Federation for only 50 years, and in that time they had never discovered anything truly important. Kate activated the holographic display above her head. The image of the ancient ship appeared, slowly rotating, so everyone could see its strange design and mysterious markings. Our exploration vessel Stellar Dawn found this derelict ship floating in empty space. Our initial studies suggest it is of human origin, but far older than any known human space travel technology. The Zephyrian War Commander Theklos leaned forward in his seat. He was a huge being, even by Zephyrian standards, with scars covering his scaled hide and medals from 100 battles hanging from his uniform. Human origin? He said, his voice like grinding metal. Impossible. Your species barely learned to leave their planet yesterday. What you have found is clearly the wreck of some other race, probably long dead. Laughter rippled through the Zephyrian section. To them, humans were useful for simple labor and following orders, but they were not explorers or warriors. The idea that humans might have ancient technology was amusing. The Kirtani Science Prime spoke next, its voice coming from the translation device in musical tones. We have examined the images provided. The technology shown appears to be at least 2,000 years behind our current capabilities. Even if this vessel were of human construction, it would represent a curiosity at best, not a significant discovery. More laughter came from the assembled delegates. The Cortani had forgotten more about space travel than humans had ever learned. If they said the ship was primitive, then it must be true. Trade Lord Vex of the Melkari stood up on his 4 legs, his fur bristling with amusement. Perhaps the humans could put this ancient vessel in a museum. It might attract tourists who enjoy seeing primitive artifacts. We could arrange the shipping for a reasonable fee. The entire hall erupted in laughter at this suggestion. Kate felt her face grow hot with embarrassment, but she kept her expression calm. She had expected this reaction, but it still hurt to hear her people mocked so openly. The ship is currently being studied at our research facility on Luna Station. She continued, we believe there is much more to learn about its origin and purpose. War Commander Theklos stood up, his massive form towering over everyone around him. Honored delegates, I think we have heard enough about this human fantasy. While they play with their old scrap metal, the rest of us have real business to conduct. He looked directly at Kate with his cold yellow eyes. Humans are useful for mining operations and simple manufacturing work. They should focus on what they do well, instead of pretending to be explorers and scientists. The insult was clear, and Kate felt anger rising in her chest. But she was a diplomat, trained to stay calm even when dealing with beings who looked down on her entire species. Thank you for your time, she said simply, and walked back to her seat dot as the session continued with other business. Kate noticed how the different alien races talked among themselves about humanity's discovery. The Zephyrians made jokes about humans finding toys in space. The Cortani discussed how primitive human science must be to get excited about such an old wreck. The Melkari calculated whether there might be any profit in selling tours of the ancient human museum piece. Later that day, Kate met with Admiral Helen Brooks in a private room on the station. Helen was a tough woman who had spent her life building humanity's small but growing space fleet. She had listened to the session from the observer's gallery. They really don't think much of us, do they? Kate said, sitting down heavily in her chair. Helen poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot on the table. They think we're children playing with grown-up toys. To them, we're good for manual labor, and not much else. Sometimes I wonder if they're right, Kate admitted. We've been in space for 400 years, but look how much more advanced. They are. The Zephyrians have weapons that could destroy our entire fleet in minutes. The Cortani have technology we can't even understand. The Melkari control trade routes we didn't even know existed. Helen set down her coffee cup and looked directly at Kate. Don't let them get to you. Every race was new once. The Zephyrians were probably laughed at by someone else thousands of years ago. But what if the ship really is just an old wreck? What if we're getting excited about nothing? Then we learn something from it and move on, Helen replied. But I have a feeling there's more to this discovery than anyone realizes. Back on Luna Station, Dr. Alan Foster and his team continued, studying the mysterious ship. They had managed to explore about half of its interior, mapping the corridors and chambers. Engineer Lisa Parker had set up temporary lights throughout the ship, making it easier to work. Dr. Foster, Lisa called from deeper in the ship. You need to see this. Alan made his way through the corridors to where Lisa was working in what appeared to be an engine room. The chamber was huge, filled with machinery unlike anything in their databases. What is it? Lisa pointed to a control panel she had been examining. Watch this. She placed her hand on the panel. For a moment nothing happened. Then the surface began to glow with a soft blue light. The glow spread from where her hand touched, creating patterns across the entire panel. It only responds to humans, Lisa said quietly. I've tried having other species touch it through remote robots. Nothing happens. But when a human touches it, the whole thing comes alive. Alan stared at the glowing panel. That's impossible. How could a machine know the difference between humans and other species? I don't know, Lisa replied. But that's not the strangest part. She led him to another section of the engine room, where more panels were now glowing softly. Ever since we started exploring the ship, more and more systems have been activating on their own. It's like the ship is waking up. Alan felt a chill run down his spine. Waking up? Lisa, this ship has been dead for thousands of years. Has it? Lisa asked, looking around at the softly glowing machinery. Or has it just been sleeping, waiting for humans to find it? Far across the galaxy, the alien delegates continued their meetings and their mockery. They had no idea that on a small research station, an ancient human ship was beginning to stir. They saw humans as the youngest, weakest members of the Federation, useful only for simple work. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. But first, something else was coming. Something that would make them wish they had listened more carefully to what the humans had found in the darkness between the stars. The warning came from the edge of known space, where the Federation maintained watching posts to guard against unknown dangers. Commander Lisa Grant was on duty at Outpost Sigma 7 when her sensors detected something that made her blood run cold. This can't be right, she whispered. Staring at her screen. The sensor showed a massive fleet emerging from the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. Ships unlike anything in the Federation databases were moving towards civilized space. They were huge, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. The largest ones were the size of small moons. Lisa's hands shook as she sent an emergency message to Federation Command. This is Outpost Sigma 7. We have contact with unknown hostile fleet. Estimated 1,000 vessels of unknown design approaching from deep space. They are not responding to communication attempts. The response came back quickly. Sigma 7, confirm your readings. 1,000 ships is impossible. Lisa checked her instruments again. If anything, she had underestimated. Command, confirming massive hostile fleet. They're moving fast and heading straight for our colonies. I'm also detecting energy signatures that match no known technology. Within hours, reports came flooding in from other outposts along the rim. The unknown fleet was spreading out, targeting multiple systems at once. They moved with purpose and intelligence, striking at weak points in Federation defenses. The first colony to fall was New Horizon, a small farming world with only basic defenses. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the planet was completely lifeless. Not just the people, everything. Plants, animals, even bacteria. The world had been stripped of all life and left as a dead rock. Admiral Helen. Brooks stood in the command center on Earth, watching the reports come in with growing horror. Each new message brought worse news. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Jack Ryan from his station, "we're getting reports from the Kepler 442 system. The colonists are evacuating, but the unknown fleet has already entered the system." Helen watched the tactical display as red dots representing enemy ships moved through Federation space like a disease. Each time they stopped at a world, that world went dark forever. What do we know about these attackers? Dr. Sarah Kim, the Federation's chief science advisor, shook her head. Very little. They seem to consume everything they encounter. Our scouts report that their ships appear to grow larger after each attack, as if they're feeding on the life they destroy. Feeding? What kind of species feeds on entire planets? We don't know. But the colonists who escaped from the Outer Rim are calling them devourers. It seems appropriate. Helen felt sick. In her 40 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Where's the main Federation fleet? Admiral Cortez is gathering all available ships at the Kepler 442 system. The Zephyrians are sending their 5th battle group, and the Kurtani have promised their most advanced vessels. We should have over 300 ships ready for battle. Helen nodded, but she felt worried. 300 ships sounded like a lot, but the enemy had over 1,000. And if the reports were true, their technology was unlike anything the Federation had ever faced. 2 days later, the Battle of Kepler 442 began. War Commander Theklos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Zephyrian Fury. Around him, the combined fleets of the Federation took battle positions. Human ships flew alongside Zephyrian battle cruisers, Kurtani science vessels, and Melkari heavy fighters. All ships, this is War Commander Theklos, he announced over the communication system. Today we show these unknown attackers that the Federation protects its own. Prepare for battle. The Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a dark cloud. Their ships moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. As they came closer, Federation sensors began picking up details that made everyone nervous. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "enemy ships are not matching any known designs. Their hulls appear to be organic in nature, and they're showing energy readings that are off our charts." Theklos studied the approaching enemy. Their ships looked more like living creatures than machines, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with dark energy. "All ships, open fire when the enemy comes into range." He ordered. The Federation fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and missile streams lit up space as they struck the approaching Devourer vessels. For a moment, it seemed like the attack was working. The enemy ships flashed and sparked as they were hit. But then something impossible happened. The Devourer ships began to glow brighter. Instead of being damaged by the weapon's fire, they seemed to be absorbing the energy and growing stronger. "What in the name of the void? ... double quotes, Theklos whispered. The Devourers returned fire. Dark. Energy beams reached out across space, and wherever they touched Federation ships, those vessels simply disappeared. Not exploded, not destroyed. They vanished completely, as if they had never existed. "Evasive maneuvers," Theklos shouted. "All ships, scatter and regroup," but it was too late. The Devourer fleet moved through the Federation forces like sharks, through a school of fish. Ship after ship disappeared under their dark weapons. The Kurtani's most advanced science vessel lasted less than 30 seconds. Melkari heavy fighters simply winked out of existence. Within an hour, the Battle of Kepler 442 was over. Of the 300 Federation ships that had entered the battle, fewer than 50 escaped. War Commander Theklos watched his flagships' rear cameras as the Devourer fleet consumed the remains of the battle and moved on toward the next system. "Get me Admiral Brooks on Earth," he said quietly. Tell her the outer defenses have fallen. On Earth, the news of the defeat sent shock waves through the Federation government. The alien races that had mocked humanity just weeks before now faced a threat that made their advanced technology seem like toys. Kate Williams sat in an emergency meeting with leaders from across the galaxy. The Kurtani Science Prime floated at one end of the table, its light flickering with what seemed like fear. Trade Lord Vex's fur was standing on end, and even the mighty Zephyrians looked shaken. Our weapons have no effect, the Science Prime reported. The Devourer ships appear to feed on energy attacks. The more we shoot at them, the stronger they become. How much time do we have? Asked President Chun of Earth. At their current rate of advance, the Science Prime calculated, they will reach the core worlds in approximately 6 months. Our remaining fleets cannot stop them. There must be something, Kate said desperately. Some weakness we can exploit. War Commander Thiklos, attending the meeting by hologram from his damaged ship, shook his massive head. I have fought in 1,000 battles across the galaxy. I have never seen ships that could simply absorb our most powerful weapons and grow stronger. These devourers are beyond anything we understand. As the meeting continued, reports kept coming in of more worlds falling to the advancing enemy. Refugee ships fled toward the core systems, carrying stories of planets stripped bare of all life in minutes. On Luna Station, Dr. Alan Foster and engineer Lisa Parker continued their work on the ancient human ship, but now their research had taken on new urgency. As reports of the Devourer attacks reached them, they noticed something strange happening to the vessel. Alan, come look at this, Lisa called from the ship's command center. The ancient control panels were glowing brighter than ever before. New sections of the ship were powering up on their own, and the mysterious energy readings were growing stronger. It's like the ship knows something is coming, Lisa said quietly, like it's preparing for battle. Alan studied the readings with growing excitement and fear. Lisa, what if this ship wasn't built for exploration? What if it was built for war? War? Against what? Alan looked at the data streaming across the ancient displays. Maybe war against something like the Devourers. Outside the windows of Luna Station, they could see refugee ships arriving from the outer rim, carrying the survivors of worlds that no longer existed. The Federation's greatest military minds were struggling to find a way to stop an enemy that grew stronger with every attack. But deep inside the ancient human ship, something that had slept for thousands of years was finally beginning to wake up. And it remembered the last time the Devourers had come to threaten the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison received the emergency call while the ship was docked at Mars Station for supplies. The message from Admiral Brooks was simple but urgent. Return to Luna Station immediately. The situation has changed. Jake had been following the news about the Devourer attacks like everyone else in human space. The reports were terrifying. Entire worlds wiped clean of life. Federation fleets destroyed without being able to fight back. Everyone was scared. And Jake felt helpless, knowing there was nothing his small exploration ship could do against such a threat. But when the stellar dawn arrived at Luna Station, Jake saw something that took his breath away. The ancient ship they had discovered was no longer dark and lifeless. It blazed with energy, its hull glowing with patterns of blue and white light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "My God," whispered Amy Johnson from her communications station. "What happened to it?" Dr. Alan Foster met them at the docking bay, his eyes bright with excitement and fear. "Jake, we need you and your crew aboard that ship right now. Something incredible is happening." As they walked through the corridors of Luna Station toward the ancient vessel, Alan explained what they had discovered. The ship has been powering up ever since the Devourer attacks began. It's like it knows they're coming. "How could it know?" asked Lisa Parker. "It's been dead for thousands of years." "That's what we thought," Alan replied. But we were wrong. It wasn't dead. It was sleeping. They entered the ancient ship through the same airlock they had used weeks before, but everything was different now. The corridors were filled with soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The strange symbols they had seen before were now glowing, creating patterns that moved and shifted like living text. The ship is trying to communicate. With us, Alan explained as they walked toward the command center, but only with humans. It won't respond to any other species. They reached the main bridge, and Jake stopped in amazement. The room was huge, with control stations arranged in a circle around a central command chair. Every surface glowed with soft light, and information streamed across displays in languages both familiar and strange. "Captain Morrison," said a voice. Behind them, Jake turned and saw a figure stepping out of the light near the command chair. It was a man in a military uniform, unlike any Jake had ever seen. He was tall and strong-looking, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. But Jake could see through him. He was made of light and energy, not flesh and blood. "I am Commander Nathan Cross, captain of the USS Vengeance," the figure said. "I have been waiting for you." "Waiting for me?" Jake managed to say, "But you're dead?" "Yes, in a sense. But the ship preserves all who serve aboard her. I have been part of the Vengeance for over 3,000 years, waiting for the day when humanity would need us again." Lisa Parker stepped forward, her engineer's curiosity overcoming her fear. "The ship is alive?" Nathan smiled. "The Vengeance is more than a ship. She is a guardian, built during humanity's first great age of expansion. We faced the Devourers once before, long ago, when your ancestors first reached for the stars." "The Devourers?" Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean they've been here before?" 3,000 years ago, they came from the dark between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. The young civilizations of that time were helpless against them. Entire species were wiped out in days. Nathan gestured to the displays around. Them, which began showing images of ancient star maps and battles. Humanity was different then. We were explorers and protectors, guardians of the civilized worlds. When the Devourers came, we built ships like the Vengeance to fight them. What makes these ships so special?" Asked Ryan Cooper. "They learn," Nathan replied simply. "Every attack makes them stronger. Every battle teaches them new ways to fight. The Devourers feed on energy and grow stronger from conventional weapons, but the Guardian ships feed on battle itself." Jake looked around the bridge, trying to understand what he was being told. "You're saying this ship can fight the Devourers?" "Not just fight them, defeat them. But only if humanity is willing to take its place as the galaxy's protectors once again." Alarms began sounding throughout Luna Station. Amy Johnson pressed her hand to her communication device. "Captain, I'm getting reports of Devourer ships entering the outer solar system. They're heading straight for Earth." Nathan's expression grew serious. "They're moving faster than before. They know the Guardian ships are awakening." "Guardian ships?" Jake asked. "You mean there are more like the Vengeance?" 7 Guardian vessels were built in the ancient war. The Vengeance is the first to wake, but the others will follow. The Retribution, the Defiance, the Eternal Fury, and 3 others sleep in hidden places throughout the galaxy, waiting for the call to battle. Jake felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. "What do you need me to do?" Nathan stepped aside and gestured to the command chair. "Take your place as captain of the Vengeance. The ship chooses her own commanders, and she has chosen you. I don't understand. How can I command a ship I've never seen before?" "The ship will teach you. When you sit in that chair, you become more than human. You become part of the ship itself, connected to her systems and her knowledge." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was studying the engineering displays with fascination. Ryan was examining what appeared to be weapons controls. Amy was already connecting her communication systems to the ship's vast network. "If I do this," Jake said slowly, "what happens to us? What happens to humanity?" Nathan's expression was grave. "You become what humanity was always meant to be, the guardians of civilized space, the protectors of those who cannot protect themselves. But the cost is high. Once you bond with the ship, you can never be fully human again." More alarms sounded. From Luna Station, reports were coming in of Devourer ships destroying the outer defense stations. Earth's fleet was mobilizing, but everyone knew it would not be enough. Jake made his decision. He walked to the command chair and sat down. The moment he touched the chair's armrests, everything changed. Energy flowed through him like lightning, connecting his mind to the ship's vast intelligence. Suddenly, he could feel every system aboard. The Vengeance, from the smallest sensor to the most powerful weapon, the ship's knowledge flooded into his mind. He learned about technologies that hadn't existed for thousands of years, about weapons that could adapt to any threat, about defenses that grew stronger with each attack. He understood how to command a vessel that was part machine, part living creature, part something beyond either. "Lisa," he said, and his voice carried new authority, "take the engineering station. The ship will show you how her systems work. Ryan, weapons and tactics. Amy, communications and coordination with the awakening fleet." His crew moved to their positions without question. They could feel the change in him, the new confidence and knowledge that came from bonding with an ancient guardian vessel. Vengeance began to transform around them. Her hull, which had looked old and damaged, now gleamed with perfect metal that seemed to flow like liquid. New weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Her engines, silent for millennia, began to hum, with power that made the ship itself seem alive. "Captain Morrison," Nathan said, his form beginning to fade as the ship's new command crew took control. "The Vengeance is yours now. Use her well. The galaxy depends on what you do in the coming battle." Jake felt the ship respond to his thoughts. She was eager for battle, ready to face the enemy that had once driven her to sleep. Through her sensors, he could see the Devourer fleet approaching Earth, their dark ships like a plague spreading through space. "All stations report ready," Lisa called out from her engineering console. "Weapons systems online and adapting," Ryan reported. "Communication established with Federation Command," Amy announced. Jake smiled, feeling the power of the ancient guardian. Ship flowing through him. The aliens who had mocked humanity's discovery were about to learn what humans were truly capable of when they stopped pretending to be anything other than what they had always been, the galaxy's protectors. "Take us out," Jake commanded. "It's time to remind the Devourers why they fled into the dark 3,000 years ago." The Battle of Terra Prime began at dawn on Earth, though in the darkness of space, dawn was just another word for hope. Admiral Helen Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Freedom, watching the largest fleet in Federation history take defensive positions around Earth. Ships from every member species had come to make their final stand. Zephyrian battlecruisers, Cortani science vessels, Belkari heavy fighters, and human ships all flew together in the face of certain defeat. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Jack Ryan from his station, "the Devourer fleet has entered the system. Estimated count is over 1,500 vessels." Helen felt her heart sink. They had managed to gather 800 ships for the defense of Earth, but the intelligence reports were clear. Conventional weapons only made the Devourers stronger. They were fighting an enemy that fed on their attacks. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks," she announced over the fleet communication system. "Today we stand together as one people, one federation, against an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy. Whatever happens, we make them pay for every inch." The Devourer fleet approached like a dark wave of death. Their ships had grown even larger since the earlier battles, fed by the energy and life they had consumed. The largest vessels were now the size of small planets, their organic hulls pulsing with dark energy. War Commander Theklos, commanding the Zephyrian contingent from his new flagship, opened a private channel to Helen. "Admiral, our weapons will not stop them. You know this." "I know," Helen replied quietly, "but we have to try. We can't just let them take Earth without a fight." "It has been an honor serving alongside humanity," Theklos said. "Your species may be young, but you have courage." The Cortani Science Prime sent its own message. "Human Admiral Brooks, our calculations show zero probability of victory. However, we choose to stand with you in this final battle." Even Trade Lord Vex of the Melkari contacted her. "Admiral, there is no profit in this battle. But some things are worth more than profit." The Melkari fleet stands ready. Helen felt tears in her eyes. The same alien races that had mocked humanity weeks before were now ready to die alongside them. "Thank you, all of you. Let's show these Devourers what the Federation is made of." The enemy fleet came within weapons range, and the Federation forces opened fire. The space around Earth lit up with energy beams, plasma cannons, and missile streams. For a moment, it looked like the most beautiful fireworks display in history. Then the Devourer ships began to glow brighter as they absorbed the energy attacks. Their return fire reached out across space, and Federation ships began to disappear. The Cortani Wisdom vanished in a flash of dark energy. The Zephyrian battlecruiser Iron Fang simply ceased to exist. "They're breaking through our lines," called out Helen's tactical officer. "We're losing ships faster than we can count." Helen was about to order a desperate final charge when her communications officer shouted with excitement, "Admiral, I'm detecting a new ship entering the system. It's human, but like nothing in our databases." On the main screen, the USS Vengeance appeared like an angel of war. The ancient Guardian ship had transformed completely since leaving Luna Station. Her hull gleamed with perfect silver metal that seemed to flow like liquid. Energy patterns raced across her surface, and she moved through space with a grace that no ship should possess. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Vengeance," came a voice over the communication system. "All Federation ships, pull back and let us handle this." Helen stared at the ship on her screen. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Like a weapon forged by gods, Captain Morrison?" "Jake, is that really you?" "It's me, Admiral, but I'm more than I was before. The Vengeance and I are connected now. We remember the last time the Devourers came to our galaxy." The Guardian ship moved toward the Devourer fleet with impossible speed. As she approached the enemy vessels, her weapons began to fire. But these weren't the energy beams and plasma cannons of normal ships. The Vengeance fired pure destruction. It seemed to tear holes in space itself. When the Devourer ships tried to absorb the attacks, something different happened. Instead of growing stronger, they began to weaken. The Guardian ship's weapons were designed specifically to fight enemies that fed on energy. Each shot taught the Vengeance more about her target, and each new shot was more effective than the last. "Impossible," whispered the Cortani Science Prime over the communication network. "The human ship is actually damaging them." The largest Devourer vessel, a massive creature ship the size of a moon, turned to face the Vengeance. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets with a single shot. When it fired, everyone in the Federation fleet held their breath. The dark energy beam struck the Vengeance directly. For a moment, the Guardian ship disappeared in a flash of terrible light. Then, as the energy cleared, she emerged completely unharmed. Her hull was glowing brighter than before, as if she had absorbed the attack and converted it into her own power. By the void, breathed War Commander Theklos. The human ship just ate their most powerful weapon. Jake's voice came over the communication system again, but now there was something different about it. It carried the weight of ancient knowledge and the authority of humanity's forgotten legacy. All ships, prepare for the arrival of the Guardian fleet. The Vengeance has called her sisters to battle. Space around Earth began to shimmer as more ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. The Retribution appeared first, followed by the Defiance, then the Eternal Fury. One by one, all 7 Guardian ships took their positions around the Vengeance. Each ship was unique, designed for different aspects of warfare. The Retribution was built for pure destruction, her weapons capable of cracking planets. The Defiance specialized in defense, her shields able to protect entire fleets. The Eternal Fury was the fastest, able to strike anywhere in the battle instantly. Together, they were the most powerful fleet that had ever existed. "This is Captain Morrison to all Guardian vessels," Jake announced. "Execute Protocol 7. Show the Devourers why they fled into the dark." The 7 ships moved as one, their attacks perfectly coordinated. Each time a Devourer vessel tried to absorb their energy, the Guardian ships adapted their weapons to something the enemy couldn't digest. When the Devourers tried to escape, the Guardian ships were faster. When they tried to fight, the Guardian ships were stronger. But the most amazing thing was how the Guardian ships began to create new vessels during the battle. Each ship opened bays that released smaller craft, perfectly designed fighters that swarmed around the larger vessels like protective children. The Vengeance alone produced over 100 fighter craft in the first hour of battle. "They're not just ships," Lisa Parker reported from her engineering station aboard the Vengeance. "They're factories. They're creating an entire fleet. Wow." They fight. The tide of battle turned completely. The Devourer ships that had seemed invincible began to retreat for the first time in their species' history. Their dark energy weapons had no effect on the Guardian ships, and every attack they made was absorbed and turned back against them. The largest Devourer vessel, realizing it was beaten, began to flee toward the edge of the system. But the Eternal Fury was faster. The Guardian ship caught up to the retreating enemy and delivered a single, perfect shot that split the massive vessel in half as the Devourer fleet scattered and fled back toward dark space. The Federation forces watched in amazement. The ships that had mocked humanity's discovery were now witnessing the return of humanity's true nature. Admiral Helen Brooks opened a communication channel to the Guardian fleet. "Captain Morrison, Jake, what are you now?" Jake's voice came back, carrying the wisdom of ages. "We are what we always were, Admiral. We are humanity's guardians, the protectors of civilized space. We forgot ourselves for a while, became small and afraid, but the galaxy reminded us who we really are." Over. The next few days, as news of the victory spread throughout the Federation, everything changed. The alien races that had once looked down on humanity now came to Earth as supplicants, asking for protection and alliance. War Commander Theklos personally flew to Earth to meet with the Guardian fleet. The proud Zephyrian, who had mocked humans as children playing with toys, now bowed his massive head in respect. "I was wrong," he said simply. "Humanity is not the youngest member of the Federation. You are its rightful protectors." The Cortani Science Prime, whose race had dismissed human technology as primitive, requested permission to study the Guardian ship's technology. "We have much to learn from humanity's achievements," it admitted. Even Trade Lord Vex of the Melkari offered exclusive trading partnerships with humanity. The Melkari would be honored to serve as humanity's commercial partners throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Kate Williams, who had endured their mockery just weeks before, now found herself in the position of deciding which alien requests to accept. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. "Times have changed," she told Admiral Brooks as they stood on the observation deck of Earth Station, watching the Guardian ships patrol the system. "They're actually afraid of us now." "Not afraid," Helen replied. "Respectful. There's a difference." Jake Morrison, still connected to the Vengeance, but able to visit Earth through the ship's shuttle, met with both women to discuss humanity's new role in the GAL.